violence and a lot more family issues, which many of you can gain a lot of information from. Yeah, we're here today to chat about school fees and school admissions, which at this time of the year we've got parents pulling their hair out because we've got our two main provinces, Western Cape Province and Gauteng Province, that do online applications for admissions. And that causes, it's excellent. It does take a lot of work away from the actual schools having to go through all these admission papers. But now you don't really have a choice of a favorite school. So, and it doesn't matter if you live next door to the school, although they should be giving you preference, it doesn't happen. So we are sitting with, and lots of people also don't have access to online, although they should, the schools should assist, or the district offices. But we've got parents that still are afraid of this type of thing and have no idea of the literacy or things that go on. I'm going to a question that came to me yesterday from a mummy. She was unemployed. This is a typical online glitch, if you want to put it this way, for a parent. She started to apply online and it got to proof of income. I don't know why they're asking for proof of income, because affordability is actually not part of the requirements according to the Act for government schools. But they asked for it, and boom, because she's unemployed and she receives children grants, she stopped. So her application didn't go through. So no one knows that she's got a little grade 1 needing to go to school next year. And we're in October this year, and luckily someone referred it to me. And there aren't even late applications at the moment being advertised because of COVID and all the different ways we've got to deal, the schools have got to deal with these admission applications. So she is one of hundreds and hundreds of parents that now still have not applied, mainly for your grade 1 and grade 8 children, because of these documents, as far as I feel, are unnecessary on the admission. Admissions are based on the child's birth certificate, parents' IDs, place of residence, and if they are not permanent residents, then proof of permanent residency in South Africa. Although we go back to that as well, which is also quite, not a lot of people don't know, is that our refugees or alien they're called alien refugees, or if their children are of school-going age, they are entitled to basic education, irrelevant if the parents have permits or not in South Africa. They are secure there with education, but again, it's not advertised. So this mommy is now sitting without a place for her little grade 1, and she's absolutely petrified because she knows it's a legal requirement and doesn't know what will happen to her. So I phoned this morning to the district where her other 2 children are in school. So then the best thing would be to place the child where the siblings are. I think I made 10 phone calls before I even got to the district. Now that's me alone, and I know how to sometimes get through get myself through the grapevine. Is that here we've got an unemployed mom, no money, so no telephone, not much telephone time, and not knowing how to get to districts or where to go to for assistance for the school. So we have to start educating, and I wish the councillors would get involved, because they could educate their communities so much more. Something I used to do in Durban is get involved with the councillors and have meetings with the residents. So that's one thing. So what happens here now, which I will be helping her with, is I'm sending the district manager an email with all her details, and from there he more likely will make a appointment for her to go to his office, which she could then try and get to, and he would then find a place. The problem is that it's so late and we don't have enough schools, we don't have enough classrooms, we don't have enough teachers. Although there's thousands of teachers looking for jobs, they're not placed because the schools, obviously the budget cannot handle them, but yet there are enough teachers. There's plenty of teachers to teach our children. It's just that they're not placed. And so that goes on as far as your Western Cape and Gauteng. And Gauteng has just opened today, I think it is, for parents to actually confirm their placements. So parents need to go into the portal on their references and check where the children have been accepted And from there, I'm not sure because I can't get into the actual portal. I don't have a child going to school and I've asked them for information. So I'm getting feedback from parents that have used it, is that there is an option in the portal for them to accept that school, or they can take that confirmation and go to the actual school. They will still have to communicate with the actual school that's accepted them to hand in hard copies of the documents and sign copies and acceptance forms and things like that there. Again, I'm going back. Schools like to ask for registrations fees. It's a malpractice, illegal practice, and I would just say don't pay it if you can't afford it. It's supposed to come off your first term school fees, but there are schools that are hiding it under building maintenance, school books, whatever. No, if you cannot afford it, your school fees become due on the first day your child starts attending school that year. It is a account that is due upfront, but of course we do give the schools, and the Act allows them to pay it over 10 or 11 months. That parents must also realize, and schools have got a bad habit of saying to you, if you can't afford your school, but yet you live in the 5-kilometer guided radius of that school, take them to a non-fee paying school. Non-fee paying schools are usually in your, what word do I use now to be not too derogatory? Okay, I'm going to use townships in your rural areas, far out. So if you're living in the suburb and they now tell you to send your child to a farm school, sometimes as we used to call it, you're looking at 30 to 50 kilometers, even further, that your child has to travel. Not safe for your child, especially in our climates today. Insist that your child is placed within first 5 kilometers. If there's really no place, then the next 30 kilometers within your radius of your residence, no further. And if the schools are rude, and I'm blatant people, the schools don't like me because I'm straightforward. They are rude. They are discriminating on parents based on wealth and affordability or status in the community. And yes, again, it's a bit of a sitting on the fence. The schools do your old Model C schools. We don't have Model C schools anymore, but your old Model C schools, your suburban schools, get the lowest part of the budget. So their school fees that are so high are keeping your school at that standard. So yes, they do need your school fees, but you are protected as a parent to apply for a reduction or an exemption based on a means test, which is based on your gross incomes over school fees. And you then can apply and get a reduction. But it is also very important that if you do get a reduction, that you become even more involved in your schools in other ways and giving back somehow or other to the school, because they need all your help. They really do need your help to keep the schools up to the standards that they are. Because if they had to rely only on the budget, well, I think they get about 360 even rand less, 360 rand per learner on the budget, which is really, it's less than our child grant, if you put it that way, per month. And you can't maintain a school or anything like that. And the higher quintile 4 and 5 schools have to maintain their own schools, and that's why your fees are so high. So yeah, so based on admission, so your Western Cape and Gauteng are online. Your other provinces are all still manual. And there we have another issue, is that you can't even get an admission form from a school. They like to just say, oh, they're full. Ask the schools, has the district HODs or SMEs or your MEC of that province officially closed that school admissions? Because then, yes, you can't apply. But if they can't produce that letter, they must give you admission forms. And you must admit everything, and your child, if living in that area, should be put into your nearest school. Apply at 3 to 4 schools, not one anymore. Not your nearest. You've got to look at say at least 4 schools in your area before you, because of size and lots of other issues. But 4 schools at least, parents must apply at. You most probably won't. Very few will get the top choice of school because of the numbers. There's so many applications. At the beginning of every year, you'll always see the media coming out that there's over 100,000 children, and we're looking at grade 1 and 8 only, that are still waiting for placements. And it causes chaos because you've got a child sitting at home, his little friends have gone to school, and yeah, he hasn't got a place. So you've got a psychological issue with the children, you've got the parents panicking and not knowing what to do. Appeal, if you get 4 declines, appeal all 4, put your motivations into the schools and appeal. Go as far as the MSCs. They're paid to do that, and they are the last one. They are the final decision making if your districts or your lower management won't do it. So yes, you can go that way. Okay, Mohammed, can I go on to some other questions that I
Maybe
was
just,
given?
can I pose a quicker question, Susan?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
So
Yes, sure.
Susan, I'm reading in between the lines. It seems to me that the schools are becoming very economical or financially savvy in the sense
Mm,
of, um, if you cannot afford, we'll get somebody that can afford, and if you can afford,
mm,
we prefer to have somebody more wealthy than you, so we can get more money from that
mm,
person. So they want their books
mm.
to be, full of cash.
Yes.
On my comment regarding that, obviously, is not right. Everybody has a right to basic education, and if that is the
Mm.
attitudes of the school, then what's the purpose of the constitutional intention right to, a right to education? But Susan, I'll give my comment a bit later on after the next question we can deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, because when I do these appeals, I mention the Constitution, I mention the Schools Act because they are just not
Mm,
complying.
mm,
And the thing is that they know that most parents don't know their rights, although
mm,
their rights should be in the reception area, open or on admission forms to parents, but it's not done
mm,
purposely because they don't want you to know, because they're able to bully you further. Okay, that is the principle of it. Is that, and yes, as I said, they want like a big cash flow, obviously, to keep the standards of the thing. But the Act does protect you, and the Act doesn't supersede their policies.
mm,
Their internal policies, which the SGB makes, has the authority to do in your Control 4 and 5 schools, is that it has to be in line with the Constitution and with the Schools Act, and it doesn't happen. I pull the terms and condition pages apart when I get them. It looks terrible because I will go through those 15 pages, and I promise you I could bring it down to a 3-page
mm,
application, just based on the law and the regulations for exemptions and the regulations for admissions. You don't need these 20 pages of infringement of your personal information, if you put it that way, because they want to know what you had for breakfast. It's none of their business.
mm,
It's none of their business. They don't have to see your bank statements. It's none of their business, especially if you can prove your income when it comes to exemptions or whatever. And as I said, admissions not based on income, but schools are asking that. And why are they asking that? So, just like you said, so they can pick out pick out those that are wealthy, out those that are credit risk, um,
mm,
safety, and yet it's not a credit application or a loan. So they have no right to go through my, let's say, ITC or any credit bureau information. They have no right to it um, at all for that thing. But because they're trying to stay, they've taken a lot of private schools' terms and
mm,
conditions and incorporated it into their SGBs. It doesn't work the same in both schools. The basics are there, yes, but this finance part of it, it just doesn't work the same. And as you say, they're not adhering to the Constitution and they're not adhering to the South African Schools Act at all, at all. And in that, and again on admissions, the Act says with a guided radius of 5 kilometers from either the residence or the parents' work address. That's a walking distance for the kids. How many both parents work? How many children have to walk home? Now they've got to take 2, 3 taxis,
mm,
or a train or a bus or extra transports to wherever they're 40 kilometers out of the area. And again, I also understand the politics of that because everyone wants a good school for your child, but we are putting our children into dangerous situations by allowing them such a large traveling space, especially if it's on public transport. So yes, Mohammed, you're right. They're not adhering to the Constitution or the Child's Act or the child's rights to education at its nearest school, and it comes down to the child's rights of education and to be safe at all times. So yeah. Okay, anything else, Mohammed?
No, I'll comment on the next question. Go ahead.
Okay. Then I got a question on what grounds can a school reject your subsidy application and tell you you must pay full amounts for the school fees? Here we go again. Schools will go and say, you'll go and say, okay, could I please have an exemption form? The bursar will say to you, what's your salary? 20,000, you'll say, okay, or your combined salaries, I'm just using around 20,000. The school fees is 15,000. Let me say, just based on those two figures, like this, they will qualify for a percentage or not, even exemption, depending on whatever, on the school fees. But they are being refused application forms because they've been asked that question. It's got also nothing to do with the bursar, because she has to just take in those forms, and it's a confidential document which has to go to your SGB committee. And it's not for those front office staff to decide if you can or not. Okay. Even the principal cannot say to you, no, you can't. He is the manager of that school, and he also knows the regulations that every parent has the right to that application. So no, they cannot decline. And as I often do, I allow a free assessment to anybody that wants it, and then I will give them the counselling forward on it. Because it's useless me doing an application or assisting them if they don't qualify. Because now you'll get a school, just give me another example of a school with an annual school fee of 7,000, but their income is 25,000. They're not going to get an exemption. But then they could have a conditional exemption if they've got a problem in the family, which has now risen as a crisis financial situation. And we have another exemption there, which is called conditional, crisis conditional. And then we will look at a whole lot of other things, like the expenses at what's happened, medical, death, whatever, and work around there. And then they can get a conditional exemption for a period of time. So there is but no, a school cannot decline your application, and also not decline your application for irrelevant documents. The Act, and then I just tell you, because they're asking for you to go to 10 banks and have all these banks stamp a document that you don't have a bank account there, or an active bank account. An active bank account could have 50 Rand in. That doesn't mean I'm hiding my income. Okay. My gross income is my monthly income. It would be my salary, a pension, investment payments I might get a month, maintenance will go into there, or any other income from small businesses that goes through your bank account. But again, the school doesn't have a right to your bank account because they use it to intimidate and discriminate on. I had a school in the KZN area the other day was saying to the parent, yes, but you bought pizza 2 weeks ago. You would have paid this more or less the same to cook a meal at home, if not more, and whatever the situation is. She could have been late from work and now needs to feed the kids. It's got nothing to do with the exemption. It's got nothing to do with the calculation of the exemption. So no, they're not entitled to. I definitely would never give them that unless I was running a business and I couldn't get an income or expenditure statement, but I'd actually black out what I felt they're not, or my expenses. They'd only get my income, which they're entitled to, not my expenses. They're also not entitled to your property deeds, your asset values, your car values, and they're not allowed to come and visit your house. And I tell my clients, I hope you tell them they have got a court order or a search warrant with a policeman to come to my house and check. Because I could be living in my grandfather's castle and not have an income. So they have no right to come and see if I've got a TV or a bed. I could have been wealthy last year. I could have been comfortable last year, and now I'm not. And especially now in our climate now with COVID, even more. So you've got the car, the BMW or Mercedes standing out there with a motorbike or whatever. That doesn't mean that you've got the capital your monthly capital coming in. So it's got nothing to do with them. And the schools are so blatant to actually attack a parent about driving a BMW or a Mercedes or whatever to drop their children. Oh, but you driving. They don't know the oh, but who owns it? The bank most probably still, or it's a company car. It's got none of their business. It's absolutely none of their business. It's not their calculations aren't, that it doesn't define their calculations. So relevant documents, which they like to tell you we're allowed to ask for anything, the Act says relevant. The word is relevant. The relevant document to the application of exemption is income, nothing else. Okay. So they ask for maintenance orders sometimes. Yes, I can agree. It can go there, but still the parents are both equally liable for school fees. If you're divorced, unmarried, the biological parents are equally liable for school fees. So yeah, that's where, no, they cannot. And they have to also tell you, if you're not happy with their decision, you do have an appeal. So you can appeal, you notify the school that you're going to appeal, you send it to the HOD of the district or the MEC's office, and that's how it will be revised. And they don't like to tell people that either. Okay, so yeah. I've just had a matter, I don't know if you saw, going back to 2016. It's taken me so many years of where this parent actually qualified each and every year, but they handed her over. The attorney fees are absorbent. She's had threats from sheriffs. She's had everything else. And yet she qualified, and the schools have not followed procedure. Based on that, the school has to withdraw those cases. And it was withdrawn. It was withdrawn on Monday. Again, I say the schools lost money. They must be paying the attorneys, or the attorneys are, and the attorneys themselves have lost revenue now because there's a lot of years of work gone in that. And the school has to pay for the rescinding of those judgments. Okay, because again, the parent didn't know their rights. They weren't told their rights at court either. And again, a magistrate is there to hear, but because the parent doesn't know their rights and usually goes to a civil court on their own and afraid that they don't talk up. And often magistrates don't allow that, even because they know the parent cannot give substantial reference to that, because it is law. They want case law or regulations put out to it. But there are magistrates also learning now. They're coming to the party, a lot of them. So yeah, this was a case, and I said it's sad enough that 15 years this woman's been, and they've loaded her onto ITC for blacklisting, which it shouldn't be there. It's not a credit application. It's not a credit. It's not a credit application. If she hadn't qualified and she had not paid her statutory portion of that, yes, then they can sue you for that. But before they have made sure that you can afford or not, they cannot. They cannot. So that's also, so that question is no, they cannot decline your application. They will have to tell you how they've come to it and how you do not qualify, for you not to qualify at all. And very few people don't qualify according to the school fees and that. Another one is my daughter's going to grade 8. I applied to a high school that her elder sister is in, and the application was declined. I think I mentioned that earlier on. And what I want to find out is what can I do in the situation as the school is close to home and already have one child in the school. You've got to appeal that decline. Go to the school with a motivational letter and say, listen, my child is in grade 8, as she said, or grade 9. I want both of them at school. Why should I drive 30 kilometers that way, 30 kilometers that, or they travel in opposite directions? The siblings should be at the same school. It's logic. The committees that are put together now, your SGB makes all these subcommittees. So you've got an admission committee usually dealing with these. And they also, many governing body members, and no disrespect to them, do not study the law and of the Schools Act. They do not make themselves a fay with the admissions. They say admissions and exemptions and school fee regulations, which is their primary objective as being on the SGB. They don't know. I've got SGB members coming to me on a daily basis, Nelly, asking questions because they don't know how to handle it. Now, there is a SGB manual available, but they don't get the training. They really don't get the training, and it's sad because that's also very dangerous for the school, very dangerous for the finances of the school.
Okay, so Susan, if I might just jump in here, if a person can afford the school fees, yes. I'm thinking pragmatically speaking, if you can afford the school fees, it's not a problem. All that you have to provide is your salary, proof of income, full stop. You don't have to provide all your bank statements, etc. So a salary slip should be enough, or do I still have to submit that as well?
No, your salary slip should be enough.
Okay.
If you are getting any other, what I also suggest, because they are so finicky, is that do an affidavit as well and say, and if you don't get any other income, if there's no other income that you have to declare, put in an affidavit. I mean, an affidavit is a sworn oath. So you put, sorry about my dogs. I've got, my neighbors are busy renovating so they can hear it. Put in an affidavit stating that you do not have any other income to declare. Yeah. Look, if you put in a false declaration, they can actually open a criminal case against you. But parents must also realize that false documents.
No, but this is a situation we let's say the school fees, for example, is, I'm using simple figures here, 1,000 rand for the year, you earning 10,000. So there is no issue concerning your affordability regarding that. So what would they require under those circumstances? Can they still demand to see your bank statements? Of course not.
Is this for admissions or for exemption? Because if you can afford it, admissions. No. So, because the school fees become, the school has to tell you, look, we're a fee-paying school. This is our fees. And you should only sign, yes, you have been informed that this is a fee-paying school. I always say to everyone, please don't sign acknowledgement of debts or confirmation that you will be, because by the time your kid goes to school, something could have happened and they try and hold you on that agreement, which is arguable in court. But again, you don't want to go that way, you know. So yes, the school has to tell you, look, we are a fee-paying school. This is our fees. When your child, you can't apply for exemption beforehand, okay? So we're going back on admission. So, but no, they are not, they do ask for your income. You don't even have to give them that, actually, because that's not a compliancy document for admission for a child. Proof of residence, clinic cards, permits if you're not a resident, ID, and that's it. And if you're coming from another school, saying going to grade 8, of course, your transfer cards and reports. If it's grade 1, well, then it will just be the basic clinic card, things like that. But you still don't have to prove your income to them, because it's not, admission's not based on your ability to pay. They will tell you we're a fee-paying school. Our fees are 1,000 rand a year, but they should at the same time, there's an extra to it which should be on admission forms. Do you want to apply for exemption? Do you want assistance for exemption? And that form should be on your admission forms. Schools also like to make you sign a waiver on ever applying for exemptions. Please put a big line right across them and ask them where they got that regulation from, because no, they can't determine what your financial situation will be from one month to another. Because even with, typical example with COVID, how many people were retrenched by the middle of April? So now you had a salary being able to cover that 1,000 rand. Now you don't.
So Susan,
and exemption applications never close.
So no, thank you for that, Susan. I'm just trying to think pragmatically and do with the practical from my side. So if a parent can afford it, but the parent lives maybe beyond 5 kilometers from the specific school, what would the school's argument be if they do not want you to come to this school? Will it be the distance away from the school?
They don't let you. They can. Some schools will be honest with you and say no, you're too far out. But our constitution doesn't allow that, because you can apply at any school. But yet the guided 5 kilometers. What the guided 5 kilometers is doing is suggesting that your children that live nearest to that school will get first preference. Then your next, say, 10 kilometers, then 30 or 40, wherever the children. So it's from nearest to furthest. And that's how it should be, but it's not done. They hide that. And they won't tell you. They will just, most of the declines of admission is oversubscribed, which is often very true. We're sitting with classes that were only built for, say, 30 children with 40 and 50 children in now. We don't have the extra classrooms. The departments or the government, the national government's not supplying enough budget to build classrooms to the provinces. And yet I don't think they even look at statistics, at birth statistics, to work out what is required in the next 7 years from the birth rate now to decide look, we've only got so many classes in the country or their province, we need to look at that. It's not done. And our schools that don't make a lot of noise are always the ones that lose out. So there's a lot of up and downs there on that. But your admission should be from the nearest to the furthest, and then it comes first come, first served furthest. Yeah.
So if I jump in there, so the creative school, they won't follow that policy. They'll focus strictly on your bank account. So they'll admit you can live 100 kilometers away from them, but if your bank account is looking good, you're there.
Absolutely.
You can live 6 kilometers away, but if your bank account isn't looking good, you're not in. That's most probably the case.
And even more so now, we've got so many parents are receiving child grants. A child grant parent or a foster parent that has a child through the placed with them through the court are exempted of school fees completely. Yes, you can, and we often say to them, okay, if they're getting, because you can get SASSA, put in, for instance, and still work because it's under a certain income, then I do suggest that they offer like 100 Rand to the school a month as what I call a voluntary school fee. Because as I said before, schools do need the fee, but they are totally exempted. A foster child is a ward of the court. So it belongs to the government, if you want to put it as simple as that, as the state. It's a state child. So that child is totally exempted from all school fees. And then the child receiving any grant or a home, a family which is child, what's the word? From a child looking after the family, they're all exempted from school fees. But yet the schools will now look at that and say, oh, they're receiving child grants. We're going to get nothing. Nope, put aside. Again, that child, just based on the fact that its parents are dead or it's been removed, it's an orphan, even orphans are exempted, is that, what are we doing? We're discriminating completely. And it's totally against our constitutional rights. And you actually, I've actually been blatant enough to tell a school you're abusing a child, not the parent. You are abusing the child. And I was quite close to trying to find a way to get to court with that, because that child lived a block away from the school, but because the parent was not there and it was an orphan, they didn't want the child in the school.
No, that's very sad. Yeah. It's very sad.
Very, very sad.
We can move on to the next question.
Okay. Okay, the other one I have covered earlier on with where the mommy hadn't gone through the registration. So yeah, that's with the online registrations. Yeah, there's lots of questions, and it's always usually around fees, especially this time of the year, because schools are inclined to start handing over fees. I'd like to just elaborate on what schools should be doing. When the Act says, or should I say the regulations on school fees says, if the parent is 2 months in arrears of school fees, they should be inviting that parent in, giving them an application, explaining to them their rights, and if they don't understand it, they should be finding someone in the school to assist them to complete it. The gazetted application for exemption is 4 pages, not 15 pages of irrelevant documents that they like to give. And that in itself intimidates a parent when you start to get this big document and with all this legal terminology and everything in it. It frightens the hell out of most parents. They just put it aside and never do it and hope the school fee will go away. It doesn't. It's also like your Edgar's account then. I'm using Edgar's, sorry. But it doesn't go away because they will hand you over. But the school has a mandate where they have to investigate completely if that parent can afford or cannot, or cannot afford the school fee before they use Section 41 of the Act on to hand over to an attorney and debt collectors. I have a problem with them handing over to a debt collecting agency because they're using the National Credit Act. And most attorneys do as well. They just see it as a debt and not necessarily a public school debt, and use the National Credit Act to try and recover the debts. I mean, people are getting 20 phone calls a day from agencies. And I feel that's harassment to start with. They threaten with everything because they know it's a call. The parents don't know it's a call center. They just think they're talking to an attorney and they're going to have their house repossessed or anything. no, I've got a huge problem with schools being allowed now to use debt collecting agencies. It used to be only a lawyer that could collect for schools, but now they've allowed debt collecting agencies, which is absolutely wrong. And again, as well, what I'm finding is that schools are often we've got our affluent or educated family parents on our SGBs, like accountants, lawyers, and the school book, debt book, will be given to that attorney, which also have a problem with, because I feel it is conflict of interest, with him now earning an income from collecting the school fees for the SGB he stands on. I've not at the time or already gone into that, or where there could be any thing that could be changed there, because I really feel that's not right, that a SGB member should be now coining it in through his or her company in collecting anything for the school. It's a public school, not a private school. And then you will get the parents not even being able to address the school when they want to with a problem. It'll be contact our attorney. And I do get these letters coming back to me where the attorneys will now not allow the parent to speak to the school anymore. I stand to correction, but I still say the debt remains the schools. They therefore own that debt. The attorney is working for the school, trying to recuperate fees. He isn't the final say, the school is. So it is the school and the attorney are together, working together, but ultimately it will be the school to decide if that matter could be withdrawn because of ABC procedures weren't taken or whatever. Not just being told we can't talk to you anymore, speak to the attorneys, and then the attorneys won't listen to you and say, but look, your school did not follow a procedure. No, sorry, it's been handed over to us. The parent has lost their rights. They haven't lost their rights. The school has lost their rights to collect because they haven't treated the parents correctly.
So Susan,
in that, yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm just thinking more from a practical point of view. Let's say I have a problem, right, with a school. Now, either admission or exemption, as the case may be. How can you assist me with regarding that? I at the start of the paper now, you spoke about you assisting someone else. I need to call out to somebody. My child must go to school. Susan, where do you come in?
Okay, I come in usually once there's been a decline, and say, let's go to admissions. Like now, there's been a decline in admission. I can't get involved in the actual admission because I'm not the parent. I can assist them to fill in their forms if they don't know what to fill in, or if they're worried about something in it, they often send it to me and I'll say, no, don't fill in that, only fill in ABC. But I can't actually get involved until there is a decline. So that is when I will come in and assist them in the appeal on the decline to the school, writing a letter to the school with the motivation. This is the reasons why the child should be at your school, or please give us more reason. I often ask them, please give me the letter that closes admissions for your school, because if they can't, the admissions are closed. And then eventually you often find that in January or in November, let's go to November month, is that they will say, okay, our applications, our admissions are still open, but yet they've declined 50 people already. You can't do that. You should go back to those parents you've declined, because now some parents have withdrawn their applications, so you've got opening spaces. You can't advertise again. You've got to go back and look at those parents that you've declined first and give them the first option to actually come and say, hey, I'm still looking for a place for my child. Please relook at my admission. So yes, I can get involved in that stage. They can come to me, as we all know, through Tabansi and my email, WhatsApp. And the same with exemptions. I do assist with the actual applications of exemptions. I then, that is done under mandates. There's a regulation that states a parent has the right to a representative of choice. It doesn't say it needs to be a legal representative, just a responsible and someone that knows literally what they're talking about. So they try to kick me out the door literally with that as well, and tell me it's a confidential document? Yes, it is. I ask my parents to sign a mandate, which gives me the right to assist them with that. And I do that, and I do the appeals right up to the MEC. And even I've had the odd one that I've had to go to the national office and get them to get the MECs to do their job. So yeah, it can get quite hot under the collar sometimes with some schools, but yeah, so I can get involved at all those angles. I've also got involved with sitting on tribunals when it comes to dismissals, children dismissals, or hearings of misbehavior. There again, you often find this victimization from a teacher continuously, and that kid, especially in high school, he's going to retaliate and he's going to answer, and he'll get 10 black marks, and that is a hearing and out because they want that child out to school because he's got a voice maybe and stands up for his rights, or he's been involved in a fight where he actually didn't start the fight, he retaliated, being punched. And yeah, so I've sat on some of those tribunals as well, assisting parents with representation there, because you're again allowed representation if you want. The child is also allowed representation. So yeah, I get quite involved sometimes. It's all in that, and bullying. When there's lots of bullying, some schools are very inclined to push bullying, which we're going to go to our GBV soon, under the carpet and say, oh, they must grow up. Your child needs to get a strength, or it happened outside our gate of our school, so we're not involved. You are involved. You're involved because it happened on, even in front of your school. And that's what's often happening, is you're finding the bullies are waiting outside the front gate because he knows now the principal is not going to get involved. But if, especially in high school, because we do have a level where children cannot be criminally charged. I think it's 12 or even 10. I'm not sure about that. But we're looking mainly at high schools. We have to look at that type of bullying is a serious matter in our schools. And teachers and principals and HODs, should I say, HODs and principals are just putting a blind eye to it and saying, and parents are now having to go as far as getting protection orders for their children and getting the police involved. Again, police don't want to get involved because they know it's often child law and it becomes more complicated, but even more so, they should be there to protect the children under bullying and being bashed or killed or whatever goes on. So yeah, I get involved with all those difficulties parents are having. It's mainly difficulties parents are having communicating with the school on their rights. So in a nutshell.
So Susan,
that's what I'm doing.
Let's say I apply for 4 schools. It's November. All 4 schools now declined. School starts in January or mid-January. Well, how long does this process take of appeal and review?
Oh, good. Okay, it can take a while. We've also got to realize we've got departments with hundreds and hundreds of applications and hundreds of complaints and declines. It's not, we don't think out of our box when it comes to our child. It's our child, it's our family. Your child and the 100,000 in front of you in all your provinces have the same issue. So they do have a regulated turnaround time, and it's usually 7 days to 30 days. And the parents need to nag, because if you don't get heard, again, your file could have just been missed, or your email could have been missed. You've got to carry on nagging, and make sure they hear you and you get a response. A decline usually starts with a letter to the school in promoting yourself, why your child should be there. They could have overlooked it. It could be a simple thing that they overlooked, that you've got another child in the school. I'm sure they don't read all these documents right through. They look at the main pieces. So whoever's dealt with your application, they could have just overlooked the fact that you do have 2 other children in the school, and go and state your reason why. Once the school declines the second time, you go to your district manager, so your district Department of Education. And if they still can't help you, which often happens, you're then entitled to go to your provincial Department of Education. And again, your MEC has the final say in placement of your child. She has to be the guardian of your child at school. So, or she or he, I'm using she as a Western Cape thing, but they are. So you go through the process. There is a procedure. So it's not right to jump the gun from okay, I've just got my letter of decline and go to the MEC. You've got to also realize she's got to go all the way back down the line. She's got to take your complaint and go all the way back to the school, go to her managers and say, look, deal with this. And then once they can't deal with it, she can only get involved there. So by really jumping the gun all the way to your MEC is not going to help you. It's going to actually take it longer, because she's got to push it all the way back down the line to her back to the school. So yeah, so decline to the school for admission. Decline, the same with your exemptions would be that you want to appeal the decline, or should I say appeal the declines, and if they're still not willing, then you go to a district office, and so you go up the line.
No, perfect.
But the schools don't like you to go to their managers, and the managers don't like you to go to the provincial, because it shows them up, So yeah, so usually they get it done,
no,
but it can take a while. In January, you will see we would have nearly 250, 300,000 children nationally that are still waiting to be placed. And there is a regulation somewhere that states that the schools have to find a place for the child within the first 10 school days of that new term. It doesn't happen. Again, we're dealing with lots and lots of different scenarios. So your little one, sad enough to say, could be out of school for the first term of the year and still waiting to be placed. It can get as serious as that. So I try to let the parents not panic, as long as they're not just sitting back and waiting for their telephone call. Because if you're going to sit back and say, oh, I did phone once and I spoke to so-and-so, but they haven't come back to me. They're not going to come back to you if you don't carry on letting them know you're there. But that is a scenario we have in South Africa. Every year, every beginning of the year, we've got, I actually don't like to open my Facebook in January because of the flooding in of questions. I'm also on my own, so I can't, it's just to deal with all those emotions. And it's so sad to see that we even have to go to that stage, that there are children out of school still on the first day. No, and I think we're going to have the biggest problem now with COVID as well, because we don't know what situation we're going, or level we're going to be in still in January. Lots of our schools are at full capacity. Some of the high schools have gone back full capacity because, as I was talking to one teacher the other night, he said, the high schools have got single desks. Most of the learners have got single desks. In your primary schools or your lower schools, they've still got the old-fashioned double desks where you've got two learners sitting, working together. Now with COVID, you've got to have a meter apart from them. So you can't have them sitting in the same desk. They cannot get more desks into that classroom. So they've still got to do this platoon schooling. So we don't even know when that normality will come back into place. So they've got to receive new children. Old children have to go up, but it's, again, space because of the state our country is in. We're in a state of disaster, so it's not normal. So we're also having this problem. The one district spoke to me this morning. They, for late admissions, like this one mommy would be put on, it would be called a late admission, is that they don't even know how they're going to be addressing the parents. Are they going to be able to come to the office, or are they going to expect them to do a Zoom like you and I are doing? So many of them don't even have the access to a computer, let alone know how to do a Zooming. How are they going to manage this? It's a whole bucket of mixed balls. It's really crazy how things are. And again, our country doesn't have to be in a state. I'm always I like to point that out, because we've had 25 years to grow, especially our education, and we haven't. It's just gone down the tubes.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. Susan, we're not running out of time, but I see we got another topic, gender-based violence, and we're ending today at 2 o'clock. So maybe we can start with that topic. Where I'm coming in is gender-based violence at school level. Does it happen at school level at all?
Yes, it does, very much so. And it's starting at junior school now again. I think I have mentioned it. I've seen it even as low as your grade R's. And the genders, it's a learned behavior. Okay. Very few times it's a mental disorder. It's a learned behavior. So you get your bullying becoming your male on female or your same-sex relationships. Bullying. And then let's just look at a scenario in a high school. You've got a gay learner, and now you've got a straight learner, and that is where they put it under the umbrella of bullying, but it's not. It's gender-based violence, because they'll start picking on that person because of their gender orientation, or how they walk, or how they speak, or how they dress outside, or who they associate with, who their social friends are, all this type of thing. And you're seeing it more and more and more. We've continuously hearing of suicides, sad enough, on our children. And cyber, it's happening over your WhatsApps, over your TikToks. TikTok was supposed to be one of the safest apps for your children. No, the things that have come through there now are, if I had a child, I'd be blocking they wouldn't be, if they're below grade 7, they wouldn't be having a phone to start with, and especially with any internet available to it. But you're getting that you will see it will start over your chats, over your Facebook. And yeah, your gender-based violence is big at school. And of course, it then goes out of school. They leave school, and the behavior has enhanced because they found they can control people on that. And it goes into their next adult relationship or into their marriage, and it escalates continuously. Yeah. So it has to be addressed at schools, at schools on a serious level. Schools should be having people in to chat, especially to their high school pupils, on gender-based violence. It mustn't be a silent topic, which is often the case. It's a silent topic in families, and it's almost like the sexual education that is supposed to be so silent and so not available. It has to be there. These children are learning earlier and earlier at a younger age. I listen to some of my friends' children, and my eyes go wide sometimes what comes out that's going on. Yeah. So it is. Yeah.
It's very, very concerning. Susan, regarding gender-based violence, we had quite a few videos regarding, we discussed the issue of gender-based violence, hosted on our lawyer platform, hosted on my platform, and also on the Tabansi platform. If you are a victim of gender-based violence, domestic violence, and so on, how do we connect with you, and how can you assist those specific people that have that problem? Either the victim or the survivor or the perpetrator.
The victim, survivor, even the abuser. I always like to go back and mention the abuser, because they can be rehabilitated. And often some people will know they are abusive, but also don't know where to go and get help. It's the same as an alcoholic or any addict, is that they know they are, but they don't know where to go and get help, or they're too afraid to speak out to someone to go and get help. They won't go to the family. It's easier to speak to someone they don't know or haven't got a personal relationship with, to speak out. So yes, they can come onto my Facebook. I am on there most of the day. My WhatsApps are there. My telephone, it's the same for the telephone. My email is there. What I can do is, if they are in a situation of needing immediate assistance, is that I could either get the police to go to them, or an organization that does the rescues, as we call it, get them out of it and into a safe house. And then from there on, if that organization can't help them get the protection orders or assist them with that or any other legal matters, they can come to yourself or myself. For yourself, especially if it's a criminal case. For myself, if I need to go and help them with a domestic violence protection order, or guide them in the direction of where to go and get it. Harassment as well. Anything like that, it's there. I can guide them to where they have to be, if they need a safe house, or if, often you find with gender-based violence, the abuser will kick let's go back again and say that the man will kick the woman out the house with the children. Here she's standing on the street now. She doesn't know where to go to. Neighbors are still inclined to close shutters or close the curtains, as we say, when they hear a fight going on. They feel it's none of their business. It's very much their business to get, and even more so if there's children in that house. So if you find that one of your neighbors are on the street or really knocking at your door for help, don't close that door. bring them in, keep them safe, call the police. The police also know all the safe houses. They know who to phone for crisis safe houses and things like that. So we have to, as a community, be very vigilant and very open-minded about it. Become more open your minds about it, that it is there, and you cannot close it off just because you feel it's none of your business. It is your business. There was a post I posted on my gender-based violence of, I think it happened yesterday or the day before, in the Mitchell's Place, Grassy Park area, where a couple were walking down the road and the man was beating this poor woman to pulp, and she was screaming, screaming, screaming. Luckily, it took, I think the people in the area said they'd phoned the police 10 times. That's also a problem. You don't get through, or you get through to the emergency numbers and you get, the call gets dropped for some reason or other. So, but in the community, at least a gentleman came out of his home and he didn't physically get involved, because they can also be dangerous again. And this is why people often don't want to become involved, because they'll get stabbed or shot in the interim just because they tried to intervene. But this gentleman came out, thank goodness. The police arrived and the woman was, and then there are groups that went out and assisted her to a place of safety after that. But it was like a 5-minute video clip that this man was just hitting and hitting and hitting her in a public space. And literally, it took half of that time, if not, because obviously the fight had started before the video had started, before anyone came out. And yet she could have been dead. He could have stabbed her. He was, at one time, it looks on that video quite closely, he tried to strangle her. So yes, get involved. Even if you just make yourself heard to that abuser, he knows he's been watched. If you all stand behind closed doors and don't come out, then he thinks he's got carte blanche to carry on and do it. And he must be charged. They should charge him. Not only the woman charging him for abuse, the police should just, under whatever, charge him for public demonstration of anger or something. Yeah, something like that must be done. So yeah, we have to get involved, very much so. I mean, I won't stop. If I hear someone fighting in my neighbors, I will definitely even climb the wall if I had to stop it. Yeah, but there are dangers. Again, there are people say they don't want to get involved because they know he's got a gun. They know he stabbed that person down the road out of anger. Just make yourself visible on your phone, calling the police, and usually that is a bit of a safety deterrent. He usually calms down a little bit, and says, "Oh, okay, we will stop fighting." No, he doesn't stop fighting. He does it in a different way. So call the police. Don't cancel that call. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Susan. Susan, we have some housekeeping to do. There is one question. A few people did comment to make this video public. I think our next webinar we'll try to change that, and while the video is playing or the webinar is taking place, we can make sure that you can share it onto your platforms as well. But there is a question regarding the Children's Act. It says 50-50, but the mom enrolled the kid without the dad's consent at school. How is that possible? Referring to me, I must answer the question. What can be done if the school doesn't follow to the Children's Act? Now, usually when I deal with these type of scenarios, there's always a problem. Usually a couple that has a child, they will jointly decide which school the child should go to. That's the normal way it gets done. But many times it happens where the parties aren't living together, they are separated, they're either divorced or whenever living together, the mother will decide on her own, I look after the child, I always look after the child, I'm the primary caregiver, I'll decide what school the child will go to. Then there's some documentation that the person can look at. You can look at the birth certificate. Many times it's under these scenarios, only the mother's name is on the birth certificate. So the mother goes to school and the mother says, no, I'm the primary caregiver of the child, the father is not much involved in the child's life, please enroll my child. Depending on the school, the mother can afford the school fees, there's no problems regarding that, the child gets enrolled. The problem the father has is that he will say, I am paying child maintenance, I'm involved in the child's life, I am a co-holder of parental rights and responsibilities in terms of the Children's Act, why was I not consulted? Clearly there's a problem here, because if the parties can't come to an agreement regarding what school the child should go to, should the child go to his school, should the child go to the mother's school, the bottom line is the child should go to a school. So under those circumstances, I would advise the parties to enter into a parenting plan. A parenting plan will generally stipulate that when it comes to important decisions regarding the child's education, religion, where the child should stay, that they jointly should make that decision. And if they cannot make that decision, they should go to a facilitator, a parenting coordinator, etc., to assist them to make that decision. If they can't come to a decision, automatically the parenting coordinator or the facilitator's decision will be made final pending the outcome of another court to review that decision. So my answer to the specific comment on our Facebook now at this moment is the mother went to school, she enrolled the child to the Pacific school, and that is a factual thing, and that is what happened. You as a father, to avoid something like that from happening in the future, approach a children's court, approach a high court if need be, have a parenting plan drawn up so that the mother should legally consult with you or agree with you regarding aspect where the child should go to. Until that has happened, this will always be the problem where the mother will make unilateral decisions. It might be in the child's best interest, it might not be, but at the end of the day, if the parties can't come to an agreement, somebody has to make a decision regarding where the child should go to and which school the child should go to. Susan, any comment regarding that on your side?
Yeah, do you? Okay, yes, we're going back to the births, especially if they haven't been married, and the child was born out of wedlock. That is only the mother. But she more likely has put that father's details down as the father at the school. And not necessarily all the time, but most of the time they do, because the schools insist on both parents' information, irrelevant if divorced or whatever. And the problem becomes, and again with it, both parents should have a right to decide where the child goes. And I think I discussed that as well, is where the parent is making that decision based on that she's getting, say, 3,000 Rand maintenance, and she adds it into her income and says, no, fine, I can afford the private school. And then we get to the stage where mom now can't pay that private school anymore, but she's included the father's details on the document, but yet he hasn't signed that document. And the school will go for him for the outstanding school fees, which then I feel as a private school is wrong, because he hasn't consented to the agreement. That's a credit agreement on a private school. But if it's a government school, both parents again are jointly involved, and especially if he's paying maintenance, it sounds that yes, he does have rights to the children, his visitation rights, and often we find in these cases is that they're living apart. He's actually fighting for his visitation rights as well as paying maintenance, and the school or she's gone to the school, or the father's gone to the school and said, listen, I don't want that parent involved with my children because ABC. The school just listens to what he's saying and doesn't go further to see if there's a court order stating that he may not have a restraining order of him entering or having any information of the school. He has the right to all that information on the child at the school. But as far as it depends. Now, the question that he says he didn't agree on that school. Is he saying this because there is a fee issue, or the school status? It could be because the child, we often get this, let's use Christian and Muslim, for instance, or Christian and Jew. You've got, the mother could be Jewish and the father Christian, or vice versa, and I want my child now to go to a Jewish school, and the father doesn't want that, he wants the child, then they would have to mediate on that. But again, everyone would be a little bit different depending on their divorce and their parenting plan. But yes, if it's straightforward, then both of them should decide where the children are going to school.
Yes.
And who's involved in it. Very much so.
Now, Susan, thank you for that. Susan, you started the webinar. The video ended. We just passed the 1 hour mark. So I would like to say thank you to yourself for your time. I think we'll have another webinar next week again, maybe on a different topic, touching something which you deal with and I deal with, and we can inform the viewers about it, and we'll obviously make it shareable as well. So while you're watching it, you can also share it on your platform as well. Susan, thank you for your time, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you,
on the next webinar.
Yes, you too.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to all the viewers as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.